You can now follow me on all my social media platforms to find out who my latest guest will be. And don't forget to click the subscribe button and the notifications button so you're notified for when my next podcast goes live.
He died in a car crash with Earl, the bass player. It was his brother.
And Earl was driving. Yeah, so it was a bad time. It was a bad time.
But we weren't asked to do the Live 8 thing. Probably the reason for that is because Bob Geldof hates us.
Why?
Because we nicked his PA. We were playing in New York, a massive gig.
No, the Greek Theatre.
Is it the Greek Theatre?
Well, when Sharon Stone came in, mine.
Yeah, Sharon Stone wanted to come on stage with us, and I was such a pompous, arrogant twit. I went, what do you mean she wants to come up on stage? I said, we hadn't rehearsed that. Of course, tell her she can't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, she's there in front row, you know what I mean? Like,
she was a belter.
Just gave her the knockback.
That could be a claim to fame, you knock back Sharon Stone.
Unbelievable, eh? And it was from then that I started thinking, hold on, something's going on here. Decisions were being made, musical decisions, you know, that I didn't agree with, and I'm going, what's going on, you know? And we were in rehearsals, and I'd been palmed off with this money that I didn't know where it had come from, and they'd said, oh, it's an insurance claim that you through something, and I went, oh, I'd never had an insurance claim. So I said to the rest of the band, something's going on, I'm being lied to by those fuckers upstairs, you know, and I'm not having it. You know, I want to get to the bottom of it. I'm not going to be lied to. And Brian Travers, who had his saxophone on, so he went, sometimes you have to be lied to, Ali. And that's when I realised, hold on, it's not just them upstairs, there's some skullduggery going on with the band.
Boom, we're on. Today's guests, we've got UB40 legends, Ali Campbell and Astro. How are you, lads?
It's great to be here. Great to be here.
Absolute honour to have you on. Massive fans, families have been, family and friends, massive fans for years. One of the biggest bands to come out of Britain. Over 100 records sold worldwide. It's an unbelievable achievement. Fair playing.
That's 100 million.
Yeah, 100 million. What did I say? 100. Just missed out the million.
Yeah.
So 100 million records sold worldwide, which is unbelievable achievement. Honestly, it's absolute pleasure, guys. How are you?
Okay, just glad to get out the house. The family.
We're still going strong. You know, we right up until we were locked down. We were in Puerto Rico and Brazil.
Yeah,
Kenya before that, yeah. So we're still doing what we do. We were before the lockdown, you know, travelling around the world and promoting reggae, you know, which is what we started out to do.
Yeah, phenomenal achievements so far. I think 60 singles released, many albums, over 20, over 30 albums, I think, altogether.
It is yeah.
Some career, guys, honestly. It's especially with the artists now, the kind of flash in the pan. To be doing this over 30 years and still going strong, it shows you the kind of mindset and mentalities you have.
Just tenacity and, you know, a refusing to go away, basically. Because it was always us having to promote ourselves, you know, because we'd never get promoted by any of the record companies we were with. Because they always thought, you know, they've had their little time, you know. But we've just carried on, and for 40 years.
Unbelievable.
It makes me laugh, you know what I mean?
I always go back to the start of my guests to kind of get a bit of information about the guests and how they grew up and where it all began, basically. You first, Ali boy.
Birmingham, Borsalete, wrong side of the tracks, I think I call it. Grew up on reggae, listening to reggae. That was the music of the streets, really. I was into the Jackson 5 when I was a little kid. I was the same age as Michael, and I could sing the same as him, you know. All those beautiful Got to Be There and Ain't No Sunshine and all those Jackson 5 hits. I used to sing them in the school playground, you know, for me mates and all that. And then in 75, I saw the Jackson 5 in 1974, and then I saw Bob Marley and the Wailers at the Odeon in Birmingham, and that just changed everything. I already loved reggae because that was the music of Borsalete, you know. All my neighbours were West Indian or Asian. I also liked Indian music and films, Indian films, Mother India and Piazza and all those Indian films. But reggae was more accessible to me than Indian music.
So how was that then? Like reggae kind of scene from obviously at that era was like the Beatles and stuff, and
I was mad about the Beatles, of course, just like anybody, you know, of my age.
Because reggae wasn't big then, was it? It was only like Bob Marley, but was he?
Yeah, Bob Marley was the first exponent of reggae really in England. John Holt, Desmond Dekker, you know. And I was like a weirdo, you know, because I loved reggae at my school. Everybody else was listening to glitter music and Mark Bolan and David Bowie and Roxy music. All of that went over my head because I was kind of immersed in reggae.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think you connected with it?
It's because it's the greatest music in the world, and it was the youngest music form. You know, one of the questions we're always asked is, you know, why do you think you're so popular and why we've done so well? It's because we chose reggae, I think, because it was the youngest music form that there was. You know, reggae only came around in like 1968. Before that it was rocksteady, and before that it was ska. So we were too young for ska. And sort of rocksteady, Red Wine by Tony Tribe and, you know, records like that is what we grew up on.
Yeah. What about yourself, Astro? How was?
Pretty much the same. We're from virtually the same neighbourhood, and you know, we was exposed to exactly the same music. Where we are, there's a high West Indian population anyway. So, if you went round to anybody's house, they'd either be playing rocksteady, you know what I mean. And when we was at school, I think it was in the second year, we started having school discos where everybody's allowed to bring in 3 records of their choice, you know, obviously supervised by the teachers. And so a few of the black kids, like myself, would be bringing in their records. And as it, you know, once you've heard it, because as Ali says, the English kids would be bringing in glitter and, you know, glitter music and whatever. And it's just like, no, this is something just totally brand new, never heard it before. And I see you just submerge yourself in it. And every dinner time, we used to go down to Ladypool Road. There used to be a record shop called Dun Christie's, where they used to do nothing but import Jamaican music. And you'd spend all dinner time there, you know, just listening to the new tunes.
He was a one-legged white bloke, wasn't he?
Yeah, Dave. Yeah, Dave died now. Yeah, so... Yeah, and that was it. So you just spend all your pocket money on records and youth clubs. You know, you go to
the
Barnabas,
the Shell Youth Club we used
Mount
to go
Pleasant. You know, these were youth clubs that it was predominantly played reggae music. You know, I think the only places that used to play mixed music was like church youth clubs. But once you started going to like Rainbow,
Barnabas,
you know, it was just reggae all the way, and then, you know, kids in the area would start building their own sound systems. You know what I mean? And then, you know, like once a month they'd have a sound clash down at the school, usually Mount Pleasant or Queensbridge or at the Shell, you know. And I see it's just a natural progression, really.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
and when we were 10, that was the first, 10 years old, that was the first wave of skinheads, the real wave of skinheads, when it was a real working class movement, and it was totally multiracial, you know what I mean? It was you'd had your rude boys coming over and Windrush and all that, you know, and their kids and us got together, you know. Mm-hmm. And I thought everybody loved reggae, but of course they didn't. It was just in our little area of Borsalete, because outside of there, you know, everybody was going, "What are you listening to that for?" You know?
So you have been friends since primary school?
I've known him since...
You knew Mickey first, didn't you?
Me and Mickey went to school together. We was in the same class at school. So I suppose from the start of senior school, I suppose, just from going down the Shell Youth Club,
He's not fucking sick of the sight of each other.
You know what? No, actually.
That's mad,
Yeah,
that. To be putting up with somebody for 40 years and still here.
Well, there was a lot of us, you know. There was us, and those who didn't become band members
Was our road crew?
became the road crew. Yeah. So there were about 40 of us in a sort of mob, you know, and because there was that many of us, you didn't get sick of each other.
So it was like a gang before the band.
Yeah.
What was your upbringings like from mum and dads and stuff?
I came from a communist background. My granddad was a big union man in Aberdeen,
Scotland.
Yeah, he's from the Shetlands. My name's Ali Campbell, by the way. So he got in trouble in Aberdeen with the unions. I don't know what sort of trouble. There's a plaque to him, David Gunn Campbell, on a union building, and he moved down to Birmingham to get away from the troubles he was having in Aberdeen. And so I grew up in that sort of environment, you know, which of course made me an angry young man, you know.
Against Thatcher and that?
Against everything, you know. When I was, I think, 6 years old, I wrote Vietnam at the top of our stairs, but they knew it was me because I spelt it wrong. It was a E first instead of an I, and I got in trouble for that. But what was a 6-year-old doing in Vietnam? You know, it's like I was a little sponge and I was taking in what was going on around me. My dad was a folk singer. And
It's like Billy Connolly and stuff.
we knew Billy Connolly very well.
Do you know Billy?
Yeah, he used to stay at our house. Yeah, well, every folk singer stayed at our house because my dad had Jugger Punch, which was the biggest folk club in Europe for a while. And they were called the Ian Campbell Folk Group. And we had Paul Simon stay at our house, and we had Billy Connolly stayed at our house, and Dave Swarbrick of Fairport Convention and all that. In fact, two of my dad's group they went to work with Fairport Convention and then Jethro Tull. So it was a musical house, but I hated the music that they were making, you know.
The banjos and stuff.
Oh, I hated all that, yeah. And the Humble Bums.
Billy's...
Billy Connolly and Jerry Rafferty.
He's an absolute legend up in Scotland, Billy.
Oh,
unbelievable. Worldwide.
Everybody loves Billy Connolly, don't they?
What was it like in your house? Was he cracking jokes then?
I can't remember. I think there was one joke he said about peanut butter. I think one of us asked what peanut butter was made of, and he said crunched up Donald Ducks, because it was Donald Duck peanut butter at the time. So we all went, But
As you do, innit?
Yeah, but that was the sort of. So I grew up in a folky, communist background. You know, hated folk music. I was forced to go to Loughborough Folk Festival and all these other type of things. And my dad's club, you know, we went to every Thursday. So of course I got into reggae.
It's mad though, from folk music to then reggae. Like, if your dad does something, usually you follow suit.
Well, he was very disappointed in us. You know, it was because we lived in Borsall Heath, you know, and that was the music of the streets, you know. And I grew up in the cafes playing pinball, you know, in the cafes, and the music in the cafes was all reggae on the jukeboxes, you know.
What about your own upbringing, Astro?
I think it was just a typical first generation.
A lot of struggles.
Yeah. I mean, my dad struggled, worked 7 days a week. But I've got to say, my childhood itself was pretty happy one, really. You know what I mean? Until I decided I knew better than everybody else and decided I'm going to walk my own path. I mean, up until I found music, you know, just be playing out on the street on the Bumpex. You know, if you needed a bike, you'd have to build one, so you'd find an old frame, old wheels. I mean, and get them straightened out and all the rest of them, spray them up and put, you know, all transfers. And then once I found, the area where I lived, there was only a couple of West Indian families in the immediate neighbourhood. And so most of my friends were just regular English white kids. And then started hanging out with a couple of kids who just moved to the neighbourhood. And it was their older brothers that kind of introduced me to rocksteady, you know, because they was old enough to...
Because you was into the Beatles like everybody else.
You know what I mean? And that was it from then. I suppose I went off the rails then. School took a back seat, and reggae music pretty much took over, because then I left school at 15, as early as I could, and just started hanging with the sound system, just travelling up and down the country, setting up the sound system, breaking them down. It was the only way I could afford to get into any of these shows, because being 15, I haven't got the money to pay to go into a gig. So what you'd do is you'd find out what pub the sound system was going to be playing at on a Friday or Thursday. Get there a couple of hours in the afternoon, wait for the van to turn up, and then just offer to help to bring the gear in. And once you'd helped bring the gear in, that's it. That was your ticket. You're in the so you just stay there until the show started. And as it then you just from there just became part of the regular crew. And I suppose so. Joining a band was just like a natural progression from playing music on a sound system to actually standing on stage and playing music.
So how does young kids from Birmingham become one of the biggest bands ever? How does that happen?
We were in the right place at the right time, The two-tone thing happened, which horrified us, We thought, what is that? I remember going to see the Coventry Automatics, which later became the Specials, at the College of Food and Domestic Arts, and it was... we didn't know what it was. It was a sort of punk band with Linville playing the ska rhythm, and we were going, that's terrible, because we were into reggae. Yeah. And of course, when we decided we'd get a band together, because, we were all reggae lovers before the band, and it was just, well, should we get a band together then, And so we wanted to promote reggae music. And the ska revival seemed like going backwards, It's like, why are they playing ska,
As if you've missed an era.
Yeah, and it just seemed strange to us. So I was working at Cadbury's on nights, listening to Selector and Madness and Specials, thinking, God, this is awful. We should be making reggae music, with our band. And we did. I was only on nights at Cadbury's. You were at Cadbury's as well, and Mickey Virtue was at Cadbury's working. In fact, I had to go and work at Cadbury's because they'd threatened to throw me off the dole, because I'd been on the dole since I'd left school, like 2.5 years. And so they made me go and work at Cadbury's making Easter eggs. One of my jobs was I'd sit on a chair that moved up and down, and there'd be a conveyor belt of chocolate buttons coming towards me, and if I saw two stuck together, I'd press a little thing and they'd go down a little hole, and I was supposed to do that for 10 hours.
Sort of Willy Wonka's chocolate factory.
Soul destroying, it really was. And at the same time as we were made to work there, we were getting our band together, and we started doing shows, and we'd only played a dozen shows at the factory in Manchester and places like that, Dingwalls in London. There's there was a circuit and we were on that, the sort of starter circuit.
How were you accepted?
People, I can remember being drenched in flub. The skinheads used to come along, because we'd play Camden with Madness, and it'd just be skinheads recoiling and spitting at us. Yeah. I'd have danglers off my lips and thinking,
off your elbows playing the tambourine. You're standing there, black and green polka dot.
It's disgusting. Yeah. But of course we were too slow, because they were there to see a ska band, and we were going, dick, so they'd all
did that ever make you think, like, fuck this, maybe we've chosen the wrong?
He gave us, the
strength to kick on.
Absolutely,
Yeah, because ska revival, that's all it was. It was a revival, and it's just like how fashions come and go. We just know this is a fashion that's here now, and it'll be something different in 6 months' time. Whereas like reggae, as Ali says, it was the youngest form of music out there. You know what I mean? Keep your two-tone, because it's something it's just rehashing old stuff. Whereas what we wanted to promote was reggae music.
We wanted to play British reggae as well, which, we weren't trying to be a yardie band.
No.
We didn't speak in patois, and we had 2 Rastas in the band, so it wasn't all a Rasta doctrine, which kind of alienated a lot of people from reggae in the 70s, So we were political, politically minded, I guess. So we wanted to say something with the platform that we had, even though it was only a little platform at the time, So we were serious, we were serious about what we were doing, and we were serious about promoting reggae. And that's what made us different, I guess,
So it's very multicultural. Was it 8 at the start? 8
Yeah.
bands
8, yeah.
from England, Ireland, Wales, Scotland, Jamaica.
We had an Arab, a crew.
How was
Indian.
that accepted as well? Was there any racism towards them, like late 70s, 80s, towards the band?
Well, no, because there was the two-tone thing was happening, and that was multiracial, wasn't it?
I mean, like you get the odd occasion. I mean, like the first time we went to Ireland and was playing in Cork, I ended up having some guys spitting at me through the whole of the show, you know what I mean? So managed to get him backstage just to ask him, what's that all about? Didn't go to plan. Ended up going to court over it, you know what I mean? But generally speaking, we never used to have any problems as far as being accepted.
Because of the time, the two-tone thing.
Yeah.
We sort of shirt-tailed the two-tone movement,
Yeah.
We got a lot of gigs with two-tone acts. Jerry Dammers asked us to come on two-tone, but we weren't taking any advances off any record company. We were being offered 150 grand. We were on £7.90 a week on the dole, and there were record companies were offering us 150 grand, but we refused that.
Why?
Because we wanted to go for points. We wanted percentages, and we ended up, we sold 8 million of our first album, which we made in someone's bedroom, on a Fostex 4-track.
How did you know about points in that then? Usually if somebody comes in with an offer straight away, if you're on the dole, then it's a case of fucking take that. So who had the brains behind
It would
that?
have been our dad,
Is that the kind of
Ian
union
Campbell-
stuff
Ian
comes
Campbell.
in?
Yeah. He went, nah, you don't want to take an advance, go for percentages, because he had record deals and things, because he was a musician. He made about 27 albums in his career. Unfortunately, he only sold about 28. But no, that's unfair. That's unfair. He knew the runnings, and
The sharks in the game.
Yeah, just the fact that they'll give you an advance, but you've got to pay it back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So and you'll pay that back before you see any record sales.
what they'd do is they'd give you an advance and then put you in their studio to make the record. So they'd just take it back off you, give it with one hand and then take it with the other.
That's nuts though, but that just shows you for an early age, because a lot of the kids now are just getting advances, getting money, taking it, buying a watch or a car, skint, and then you never hear from them again.
Right,
So
because they're in hock.
But then you're getting offered that 40 years ago, that's some amount of money.
Yeah,
You're
it was
offered
massive,
150 grand.
For kids who were on the dole,
Yeah.
and we'd been on the dole for 3 years.
What was the rest of the band members saying though? Were they not thinking, fuck it, just take it?
No,
No, we were all...
Did you trust each other then?
Yeah, we were all of one.
we was on a mission, you know what I mean? And nobody was going to deviate from that because everybody was truly just singing off the same, page, yeah.
Yeah. So 1978 you got together,
79.
79,
Yeah.
and you released this, was number 4 your first single, got to in the charts?
Yeah.
Well, Chrissy Hine came to see us,
Yeah.
of the Pretenders, and they were number 1 with their album at the
That's in
time.
the pocket.
We'd only done a dozen gigs up to then, and she saw us at the Rock Garden and gave us a 35-date tour to support her.
And you end up doing the number 1 single with her? The Sonny and
Eventually
Cher
we
song,
did, yeah.
that's a tune as well.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a tune.
Well, that was the first song,
I Got
the first
You, Babe.
record I ever owned that my mum bought for me when I was like 5 years old or something was I Got You, Babe, yeah. So we toured with the Pretenders and we released our first single, which was called Food for Thought and King.
Yeah, double A side.
And that went to number 4, so we
Rebooked.
after that tour, we rebooked the same tour again all over England, and that was us up and running.
And how was that when you started getting recognition, just boys from Birmingham just starting to take over the reggae scene?
You can't imagine what a laugh it was, because we always thought we always felt like we were shoplifting or something. You know what I mean?
Doing something wrong?
Yeah. So it was just like, what's going on? Suddenly we were on top of the pops, and and selling out places and stuff, and it was hilarious, you know. It was like a dream come true.
How did you handle that though? Because it must have been difficult, especially when people watch TV back then. It's 15, 20 million. It's not like now there's so many different things people can watch. That if you're in the limelight, it's a totally different sort of fame from what it is now. How did you handle that at young age?
I think because there's so many of us, we kept each other's feet on the ground, you know what I mean? Didn't allow anybody to get big-headed or start boasting about anything.
But we were arrogant in ourselves, you know. When you look back, you know, we were convinced that we were going to be
successful,
bigger. Yeah, you know, it was we're going to be bigger than the Beatles, you know, and all this. And when we were told that we got our first number one, I remember going, "Bet time," you know, because it's like we were angry because we were selling, because we were an independent label. We had our own label. We weren't going through the right shops to get the chart positions.
Yeah, the chart shops, yeah.
So, you know, you'd have the Jam at number one selling 30,000 records a week, and we'd be at number 4 doing 50, you know. So we were like cutting off our nose to spite our face, basically, by being, you know...
independent.
Yeah, you know, we're staunchly independent and all that. So what we did was we ended up having our own record company, but leasing it to majors, you know, A&M and... Virgin eventually, but we went with CBS, and we got sacked off CBS.
Yeah.
Well, we were in Paris and we went to dinner with the record company, and we just did the usual thing and started skinning up after after our pudding, and started smoking weed and all that. And they were horrified, the record company people, and just sacked us on the spot, you know.
So people were kind of not blackball you, but was it difficult for people to work with you? Were you like not a pain, but
we were
because you
pain.
weren't jumping through hoops and being a yes men?
We were proper pain, I think, weren't we, to work with, you know.
But you fucking don't look at either, like in the videos and that. He's all like kind of clean cut, just having fun.
Well, we had a reputation for being a dour band because we were political, you know. Crying into your beer again, UB40, you know what I mean? 1 in 10. Ooh. We were actually we were the biggest party band in the 80s when you check it out, you know. And always were.
Who did you party with?
Everybody, you know. It's like anybody from that era, you know, they knew about UB40. A lot of people avoided us.
Yeah, because you and Madness were the two biggest bands of the 80s. You have charted more than anybody else in the 80s, and you look at the names you were up against, so that just shows you how fucking popular these were then.
Madness, great bunch of guys. And Chrissy Foreman, actually, his dad was a folk singer as well, so my dad knew Chrissy's dad, and you know, it was a bit like
they all kind of linked. How did Labour of Love come about?
We sold 8 million of our first album, which was a self-penned signing off, called signing off because it meant we could sign off. And then we did Present Arms.
Present Arms in dub.
We wanted to show people what dub music was, because people didn't know.
I don't know what is dub music.
Dub.
Yeah.
Well, what we did was we did Present Arms in dub, which means there's no vocals and it's just drum and bass, and it's production. It's a producer's art that comes from reggae when people were toasting over it. So you'd have the song on the A side and a version of the song, an instrumental version on the B side, right?
Yeah.
And then they started
rapping on the B side,
with U-Roy and people like that talking over the music. Then you'd start
Then you'd have the producer
King
deciding,
Tubby.
King Tubby, Scratch, scientists. What they would do, they'd play the track again, and they'd just add as many effects. Echoes, reverbs.
It's stripped down, just stripped down to drum and bass, and then using echoes and effects and all that. So that was dub, and we loved dub. And so with our third album, we thought, let's show everybody what dub is. And we did Present Arms, which went to number 2, and then we did Present Arms in dub.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody started taking it back to the shop, saying this is wrong, there's something wrong.
Nothing
with it.
on that.
It's all weird, you know, the vocals are missing.
There's all these echoes.
And literally in droves, people were taking it back, demanding their money back. So that was our dub experiment going horribly wrong. But you know, it's because we were trying to educate people into what we loved, you know.
Do something new, change the game.
And it was totally new for the pop charts at the time, you know. And we got the first dub album into the pop charts ever, you know.
Yeah.
And
it's just like as people used to, you know, ask why we play reggae music, you know, come from Birmingham, you know. And so really, we wanted Labour of Love to be our first album, but people just says you can't do that. You'd just be perceived as a cabaret band.
As a covers band, yeah.
The
You
covers
know what I mean?
album.
And so it eventually took 5 years for us, you know, because the simple reason was this was, you know, the tracks on Labour of Love 1, that was answered just by saying these tracks are what we grew up listening to. This is what made us love reggae music. This is what made us want to be a band.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then Labour of Love 2, 3, yeah, those was songs that we was listening to once we was already a band.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So Labour of Love, obviously, how does somebody create a song, a Neil Diamond song, and ends up bigger than him, and he ends up singing your version years later?
He ends
well,
up doing
how
the
the fuck
reggae
does that
version.
happen?
Well, we didn't even know it was Neil Diamond at the time. You know, when you used to look at your record, and there'd always be the name of the artist, and then in inverted commas would be the actual writer.
M.
And it was
Diamond.
M. Diamond, so we're thinking it's either Neville, Negus, you know, Nicky, you know. And so to find out that it was Neil Diamond, it could have knocked us over with a feather.
Yeah, so Neil Diamond, after Red Red Wine, he's went number one in America, number one in the UK charts. That's when you've got the kind of global stardom. How was that then to go up a notch and level up? How was that?
It was brilliant in America because we went and played Madison Square Gardens while being number one, you know.
Yeah, and the only other band to do that in history was the Beatles.
Yeah, so we were well chuffed with that because our little thing, you know, we're going to be bigger than the Beatles, but, you know. And then there we were playing Madison Square Gardens, you know, and after that we were playing the Pier,
Yeah.
you know, which was an amazing place. And we were in New York, you know, and we were smashing it, and it was great.
How did the Americans take to you?
Oh, we love your style of rock and roll.
Yeah.
We love your style of rock and roll, but could you turn the bass down a little? That's what they said.
Yeah. I remember.
They didn't like the bass; it was too loud, you know.
How did Kingston Town not get to number one?
I don't know. It should have been number one.
That should have been number one. That's an absolute classic.
Yeah, like I said, we have always promoted ourselves. We've always had to promote ourselves because record companies have never had faith in us, you know. So we'd have a number one with Red Red Wine, and then they'd think, oh, that's the end of that, you know. And then we'd release Homely Girl, and we'd release Kingston Town, you know, which should have gone to number one, really. But we just didn't have that, you know. We didn't have a committed record company behind us.
You end up releasing over 60 singles, so you must have had support.
That was
That
just
being
tenacity. That was
independent.
us going, this should be number one as well.
Yeah. Did every song you released you think would have been number one?
If we'd have had the right backing, you know. Not all of them, no, but definitely more than we had. We've had four number ones in our career. We should have had more, I think.
Kingston Town should have been, that's a home run, man. That's an absolute tune.
Yeah, there was. I was in Medellin in Colombia, and there's actually a cafe called Kingston Town where they just play Kingston Town, you know, continually. Yeah.
And Chrissy, you done the duet with
Chrissy Hine.
Chrissy Hine.
We did.
I Got You, Babe.
And we also did Breakfast in Bed, which was an old Scotty and Lorna Bennett song. You know, that was top 10 as well. Chrissy was lovely. She's like our auntie, you know.
She look after you.
She did on the first tour. She was great, and Pete and Jimmy, who both died after that, they looked after us great, didn't they? You know, we'd all be in their dressing room, you know, when we were supporting them, and they'd leave all their food and their drink for us because we were like paupers, you know. So she was lovely to us, and it still is. I played with her about 18 months ago at Wembley with Fleetwood Mac. The Pretenders were playing, and I got up and did I Got You, Baby.
People still loving it.
Yeah, they love it to bits. Yeah.
How was it when your producer, was it producer car crash? Was it at 86, 87 when your career was just kicking off? How did that affect you?
Big time.
Big time,
He was like the ninth member of the band. He was always out front. So when we were coming up, playing clubs and you know, the smaller venues, it was him on the desk, you know, dubbing the music, putting the echoes in, and you know, spinning echoes around the room and stuff. And he died in a car crash with Earl, the bass player. It was his brother.
And Earl was driving. Yeah, so it was a bad time. It was a bad time.
It was terrible for me because I used to train with him, with Ray, or Pablo as he was known, and weight train, you know. And I couldn't train after he died, so I got fat. That's when I got fat.
How does that affect the music? Does the music get more deeper and stronger, or you still stay on the same track then?
Reggae's a very uplifting music anyway, so what we were famous for, I guess, was rapping our pretty solemn, political, you know, lyrics in happy tunes.
Subversive.
You know, our first hit was called Food for Thought, and that's skin and bones is creeping, doesn't know he's dead. Ancient eyes are peeping from his infant's head. You know, it was like 4 years before Live Aid, and it was about that, the hypocrisy of celebrating Christmas while people are dying all over the world. You know, but it was in a do-de-do-de-do-do, you know, sort of happy little melody.
Were you at Live Aid? Did you just get asked to go? No,
not at all. No.
Why is that?
Well, there were no black acts on the first Live Aid.
Well, they're not.
No.
I didn't know that.
Well, it was Whitey helping out Blackie, wasn't it? It was all a bit.
So you didn't get offered to go, no?
No, we did the Live 8 after that.
Yeah.
Like
Hyde Park, was it?
6 years later or something. But yeah, we weren't asked to do the Live 8 thing. Probably the reason for that is because Bob Geldof hates us.
Why?
Because we nicked his PA when he was on tour. They were using TechServe, which was a PA
company from Birmingham.
Yeah, that we used, and he wanted to go back on tour, and we nicked his PA system, and because we were using it, we wanted to use it, and so I think, you know, he had it in for us and didn't want us anywhere near it.
Yeah.
And the only reason we got on the Live 8 one was because by then I'd brought Bill Kirbishley in to manage us, who was the manager of the Who, and you know, he sort of bargained and says, "Have UB40 or you won't have the Who," you know. So,
yeah. The Hoover class as well.
Great band, yeah. They're still going strong.
Yeah, still travelling the world.
They are.
How was it then how did you think from the end of the 70s, 80s, 90s, what era did you, even till now, but what era really resonate with you? How much has music really changed from those years?
Well, reggae's changed. It's gone through changes. It went electronic in about 85. 1985 with Sling Tang. And so that was the first reggae record that didn't have a real bass on it. It had a keyboard bass. So it went electronic and digital. And that changed reggae quite a lot. But we adapted and started doing the same thing, you know. You know, we were reggae anoraks, so we were just obsessed with, you know, what was happening, what the new bass line was, and still am.
Yeah. What about the film, is it Sliver, with Sharon Stone? He's got another absolute monster song. How did that come about?
Well, we'd originally written...
Honeymoon in Vegas, it was for, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Elvis Presley.
Originally, yeah.
Cover.
But they decided to go with Bono's version.
Who?
Exactly.
Nobody's heard that version. Yeah.
So it's just like the track had just been sitting on the shelves, and then like another, you know, Sliver came along and it just says, "Can we use it?" He says, "Yeah, well, it's there, it's done, dusted." You know.
Our song actually did better than Sliver, the film.
done better than that.
Yeah. And believe
Bono's,
it or not,
I think Bono's, I think it was 182 on the charts.
What was that?
In all seriousness, you know. So it did make me laugh at, like, you know, when we brought it out on Sliver.
And do you remember we were number one with Can't Help Falling in Love?
Yeah.
And we were playing in New York, a massive gig.
No, There's a Greek theatre.
Is it the Greek Theatre?
Well,
yeah,
when Sharon Stone came in, man.
Yeah, Sharon Stone wanted to come on stage with us, and I was such a pompous, arrogant twit. I went, what do you mean she wants to come up on stage? I said, we hadn't rehearsed that. Of course, tell her she can't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, she's there front row, you know what I mean? Like,
She was a belter
just,
as well.
just
She
gave her the
was
knockback.
Actually, could be a claim to fame. You knocked back Sharon Stone.
Unbelievable, eh? Yeah.
That's unbelievable. Is that how serious you took your craft, though? That
Yeah,
if it wasn't
you know,
scripted, then fuck off.
Exactly.
Yeah,
you
there's
know.
no girls in our gang.
No, but we were serious about what we were doing, you know, and because we were under such scrutiny, you know, and everybody always wanted to pull us down, you know, knock us down a bit. Yeah. So we were always wary of that and always wanted to make sure that we did a good show, you know.
Do you feel as if you were not under pressure, but do you feel as if because you were different and changing the game that people didn't like it, you weren't singing to their tune, so you became more scrutinised and people trying to bring you down?
They were constantly trying to bring us down. You know, the press would always misquote, you know, what we said and stuff. We didn't play the game with the press and never have.
But how did you get so far then? Because you don't see anybody else being independent.
Just tenacity.
Being a pain in the ass, just not going
Well,
away.
that's it. I'm like, for the first 5 years, we was basically spent on the road. Didn't come home, basically. You know, we was constantly touring.
But we didn't go away on big tours. No. That only happened when Dave Harper started managing us. He used to manage Robert Palmer and Sparks, and we were looking for a manager. And I'd seen a picture of Robert Palmer in Vogue, and I thought, we should be in Vogue. You know what I mean? That's where we should be. So we interviewed David Harper. And he started managing us, and it was him that really we hadn't toured away for more than 6 years, 6 months at a time. Yeah. 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
We wouldn't tour more than 6 weeks because we had wives and kids and all that, and because we were very stupid and mismanaging ourselves, you know. And he said, you know, you got to go away for longer. Yeah. So we ended up doing like 18-month and 2-year tours then, you know.
How was that then?
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Best life in the world, man, you know.
Yeah, the only way to put it is, I can't think of another job where you're out with your mates, travelling around the world, having the greatest time and getting paid for it.
Every time, all the videos that I've seen of yourself, you look so fucking happy, man. You just look so happy. I don't know if you're high or whatever's happening, or you're drunk, whatever, but you look happy.
Yeah, well, it's our chosen profession.
I think it was actually I Got You, Babe. How did see the video of that? Was that a sound check? How did the video get made of that?
Yeah, what happened
because
was...
it works well.
We made the first video we made for that. We had a bit of animation in it, and it was Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher dancing, right? And that was, and they wouldn't play it, you know. They wouldn't even. He says that's not going to get played, you know. We would go, come on, it's like, you know. So anyway, we ended up making a video of us sound checking in New York. Where was that?
Jones Beach.
That's the one. Yeah.
Because your songs as well have been on so many films. I think Speed as well, and an Eddie Murphy film. Is that correct?
We've been in probably 25 movies or something like that. They've used our music. Yeah.
That's unbelievable. Like the music that he's made that are in so many films and classic films as well. Some amazing films.
The Speed 2 thing was good because we got to meet Sandra Bullock. You know,
what would you have knocked her back if she wanted to come on stage?
No, I'd learnt my lesson by then.
She's an absolute darling.
Yeah, hello, Miss Bullock. Yeah, but and then my favourite programme at the time was Married with Children. Do you remember that?
Oh, the Bundy.
With Al Bundy.
The hand down the trousers, sitting on the couch.
That's it. I got to meet him at the film lot at Universal or whenever it was. So that made my day. You know what I mean?
How is it then? Because you got a number one in Red Red Wine, and 10 years later another number one. Do you felt as if you constantly had something to prove all the time? If you felt as if people were trying to pull you down?
Well, Red Red Wine had 2 lives because it went to number one in 1983 all over the world except for in America. Yeah. And then 5 years later, it went to number one in America, and that was because a college radio station...
And they had the 12-inch version.
Yeah, they were going to play The Beat,
Yeah.
And he couldn't find
No,
the
it was
Beats
Ziggy Marley.
record.
No, it was
Oh,
Ziggy.
was it Ziggy Marley, was it? I
Yeah.
thought it was the Beat. And anyway, they couldn't find that, so he just put Red Red Wine on, and then kids started phoning in, and it became it was shot to number one. But again, not because it was being supported by a record company. It was a fluke, and it was because of this college
How
station.
was it when the popularity started rising? There's 8 in the band. How was the drama? Was there any dramas then, or was it all solid unit?
We were all on the same money.
Yeah.
It didn't matter who wrote what. Everybody got the same.
Yeah.
And, we did that because we knew that most bands split up, and usually it was because of musical differences, which means somebody
Money.
was getting the publishing and the others weren't,
Yeah.
So we set a precedent there where it didn't matter what you'd done. If you're in UB40, you get the same cut.
How was that for you? Did you ever feel a lot pressure on yourself being the lead singer? Was it anybody ever try to pull you away to go solo then?
No,
80s, 90s?
I made a solo album called Big Love in '94. We were really popular at the time. We just had Promises and Lies.
Yeah.
Right? That sold 10 million in America alone, and we'd had Can't Help Falling in Love was on that. So, and I just thought I had about half a dozen tracks that in the studio, because we had our own studio. So when we weren't touring, we'd always be in the studio. And I had half a dozen tracks, and I said I want £1 million for a solo album, and they don't be stupid, And I went, all right, and I won't do it then. And I held out, for about 8 months or something until they offered me $250,000, And I now I'm $500,000, and then eventually I got $1 million, and it was tax free, and it was non-recoupable, So it was like the great reggae swindle, basically, because what happened was they went, great, they give me the £1 million, I made the album, they released it, and then they thought I was going to promote it, and I said, no. I never said that. I never said I was going to promote it. And you promote it, which of course they'd never promoted anything properly for us, so they weren't going to start either. So I think they felt that I'd swindled them a bit, But I said, I'm not going solo. I just made a solo album. I'm still with UB40, and I'll be touring with them,
That's what they asked for, an album. How did the band members treat you when you done that? Were you all in this again?
I think it was the start of
the decline.
I think it sowed a seed.
Yeah.
Because there was it was non-recoupable, and it was tax-free because we were out of the country for 2 years anyway. So I got £1 million in my hand, I also got 1.2 million out of the tour we'd just done, and then I got 800,000 to promote my new record label in Jamaica, So I was looking at £3 million sitting on it, and I was in Jamaica happy as a pig in shit, wasn't I? And I think there's, at the time everybody was happy for me, but then I think it kind of started to.
Bit of jealousy.
Yeah.
I would say so, yeah.
It must have been tough though to be everything getting shared equal to then you're getting.
Well, I didn't see it that way.
millions.
I mean, there was nothing stopping anybody else from doing a solo project. You know what I mean? I was happy for him. If we're not doing anything, he's got time on his hands. If he's got music to put out, go for it.
And they all said, to a man, what's the matter with you? Why don't you go and promote it? Because I'm not interested in promoting it. I'll stick with the band and say, oh, okay. And then later on, when I did another solo album, which was written mostly, the lyrics were written by Brian Travers, the sax player, and we were just doing a sort of experiment because he wanted to write songs that weren't political, and he said, shoot, I want to write pop songs and do some pop stuff, see how we get on. So he soon lost interest in that when we had about, again, a half a dozen songs. So I said, I'll make another solo album then, called Running Free. And then I went to the band and says, because I released it and it went to number 9, and we hadn't had a top 10 album for a long time, for about 15 years at the time. And I said, I want to promote, I want to take 1 month out and promote the album, like I didn't promote the, Big Love, the first one. And they wouldn't let me do it. Which is when I went, well, sod you then. And I left.
And that was in 2008.
Yeah.
How was that feeling? How was that for being so solid to travelling the world, being brothers basically, to then everything, the cracks starting to appear? How did that affect you?
It was awful, and it was because it was a kind of divide and rule thing that happened with the management. And when I resigned, that was what I said. I said I can't work with this management team anymore, as well as the fact that they wouldn't let me promote my album. And it was horrible. I didn't leave to promote myself and to pursue a solo career, which is how they put it, how they span it. I left because I couldn't work with the management, and Astro left for the same reason a couple of years later, because the management were up to a lot of skullduggery,
Typical management. How did that put a strain on yourself, Astro, when Ali left? Were you trying to still kick on? And
Yeah, well, that's all you can do is try and carry on. But, for me, I think it was one of the darkest moments of the band's careers, you know what I mean? I couldn't believe that they would be prepared to lose their lead singer over management. You know what I mean? Yeah. Managers, we used to go through them, like butter. You know what I mean? So all of a sudden, why they're so insistent on sticking with the same management?
Well, we'd had a meeting.
And they're still there now.
We'd had a meeting in Paris, remember, where we got rid of one of them because he'd made such a mess of the stage show that we'd done at the theatre, Alex, in Birmingham, remember? And he'd really messed things up. So we'd had this meeting in Paris, and where we decided we're losing him, and the other guy was there, and he went, "Okay, I'll tell him when I get back." Blah blah blah. So we all got back. I went down. I wasn't living in Birmingham then. I'd moved down to Bournemouth, in the Bournemouth area. And 2 weeks later, I went back up to Birmingham to our studios, and they were best friends with the bloke that we were supposed to be sacking, and everybody was back on board with him, and I was like, what's going on, and it was from then that I started thinking, hold on, something's going on here. Decisions were being made, musical decisions, that I didn't agree with, and I'm going, what's going on, And we were in rehearsals, and I'd been palmed off with this money that I didn't know where it had come from, and they'd said, oh, it's an insurance claim that you through something, and I went, oh, I'd never had an insurance claim. So I said to the rest of the band, something's going on, I'm being lied to by those fuckers upstairs, and I'm not having it. I know I want to get to the bottom of it. I'm not going to be lied to. And Brian Travers, who had his saxophone on, so he went, sometimes you have to be lied to, Ali. And that's when I realised, hold on, it's not just them upstairs, there's some skullduggery going on with the band.
How was that for you, to think that you were a backstabbing?
That's what it was. It was a total backstabbing. Kind of naively, I never expected it at all. It was literally when Travis said that, sometimes you have to be lied to, Ali. I realised then, hang on, this isn't right.
So that was nearly 30 years together, though.
28 years, yeah.
It's still a long time to think then. That it's heartbreaking as well to see that you have been so close, travelling the world, you have made money, everything's been split. No disrespect to anybody else, but you were the face of UB40. Do you know what I mean?
And I wrote all the melodies.
Yeah.
As well, every original melody we did.
What do you think happened then? Just everybody getting older, greedier? What do you think?
I think it was because of the deal that I'd got before. That's sown seeds of contempt, I think.
Yeah.
And
did they feel as if they should have maybe got a piece of your solo money?
No, but I just think that there was jealousy.
It was a battle of wills
bit of
because
jealousy.
they'd lost that because he decided I am going to go and promote my album. You know what I mean? a few people, the noses have just been pushed out the joint because it's usually been a case of who can shout the loudest.
Yeah.
You know, gets their way kind of thing, you know what I mean? But as Ali says, I ain't going to be browbeaten, you know what I mean? You know, I'm out of here. You know.
And now it's how many of you's now free? It's you and Astro and
It was Mickey Virtue as well. When I left, Mickey Virtue left at the same couple of weeks later because he was owed money that the management was telling him he's not going to get. It was like that £250,000 or something. So he came down and I started investigations, and what I found out was that the management had lent us money and we thought we were paying back, you know, a company called Duma actually, and I sent a private investigator out to the Turks and Caicos or whatever, and we found out that the signatory on Duma was one of our managers. So they were then charging us extortionate amounts of money to pay back this loan that it was actually them. Mm. So I thought, wow, wait till the lads hear this then, you know. And I got Mickey Virtue, and he came down to London and I showed him, you know, that we had this proof that the management were at it. And he went back to the band and nothing happened. They stayed with the management because they were in cahoots with them. They were flipping properties with him, you know.
all in business together then?
Well, one of them, one of the management people had come to me and says, you know, we're starting to flip properties, are you interested? And I went, fuck off. We're a bunch of fucking socialists. What are you talking about, flipping properties, you know? Like
politics
like vultures, you know, waiting for people to lose their home and then, you know, and then going in and buying it and then flipping it. I said, you know.
So that goes against everything that you've been raised like.
Totally, yeah. And everything I've just been singing about for 28 years, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I was dumbfounded, you know, and then I found out that band members were involved and all that, and so, you know, and then it just got more and more unpleasant. You know, when I left, well, you can tell them this, when I left and the fans were all going, well, thanks for the memories and, you know, blah, 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 and then Jimmy Brown.
Yeah. So, yeah, and that was because like when he left, you know, everybody just like, man, okay, adopt the high ground, you know what I mean? Don't say for. Within about 3 hours of Ali leaving, or 4 hours of him leaving, I mean, like, the fans had been, you know, thanks for the memories, blah blah blah. Hope you're happy in whatever you do in the future, blah blah. 4 hours later, Jimmy Brown's here. Right, it's time to
he's a drummer.
It's time to muddy the waters now. Can't allow him to gain traction with the fans, you know what I mean? And that was it. Just started an assassination, you know, character assassination on Al, you know.
It lasted well until now.
Yeah. I couldn't. When the first said, you know, we just keep this amongst ourselves. I'm saying, well, quite rightly so, because it doesn't fucking concern anybody else apart from the band.
In-house.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and air you.
And then, like, within
laundry.
4 hours, as I say, little fingers itching on the keyboard, you know what I mean, just assassinating Al. And but at the same time, you know, dark clouds had already started forming, you know. Yeah, we knew that, you know, people were coming looking for money from the band, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that was the only reason why I couldn't leave straight away, because I thought, if this is going to blow up, you know what I mean? Knowing the way how I know that certain members are, I'd be left to fend for myself, you know what I mean? And after...
And what happened?
I had to fend for myself.
Yeah. What they did was, they put a trumped-up director's loan on me, which was a load of bollocks, and then I actually had a meeting with one of the management, and I taped it at the Hotel de Van, going, what's this? You know, what's this bloody director's loan? It's nonsense. And, I'm just juggling figures. Don't worry about that. I'm just juggling figures, Ali. And at the same time, my brother Robin was signing off accounts, saying that I owed this money, you know. And then they did exactly the same thing to Astro.
Not fraud then?
And so, like,
absolutely,
the discrepancy
fraud,
that was actually worked out to be exactly the amount that they're saying that me and him owed.
Well, what it was, it worked out exactly what it cost to run the company every year. That's what me and him apparently owned, you know, this from directors' loans. you know.
Yeah, that's when, like, you know, you've got one of your so-called mates, like, just own up to it. You know that you had that 400 grand. I'll go, what do you want about? And especially if you know, because, like, you know, there was talk, you know, I've been freeloading for the last 25 years, blah, blah, blah. So if you dislike me, oh, how would you allow me to have 400 grand more than you? You know what I mean? It's, you know, and so like when it all went tits up, when I was having meetings with the solicitor, they was more concerned about Ali finding out about, you know, whatever was being discussed. You know what I mean? It's just like, and they was even telling me not to tell my wife that she was about to lose a fucking house. Just because my wife and Ali's wife, they remained mates. After Ali had left, you know, well, I can hand on heart, me and him didn't talk once, you know what I mean, until I left and joined Al. You know, it hadn't been something that had been planned out, you know, secretly, you know what I mean? But just purely because our wives had remained in contact with each other. Every few months, we'd be like, well, seen Ali lately, or what was Ali doing around here? You're going, well, what do you want about? You know, so it was just bad vibes all round. And so, like, when it all kicked up, I mean, like, it's like when we got the solicitor, we were in a room with the solicitor. I'm like, I did start taping the meetings, yeah. And when asked his plan of action, I had a couple of people, Robin and Brian, bleating, saying, I don't owe this amount of money, and, you know, giving daggers to Dave Parker, so, you know, and Dave was like, no, it's all right, yeah. As far as I was concerned, they was expecting me to divorce my wife so that she'd be able to, you know, claim money before, you know, the
court case. What?
That was from me. Everybody else, we can work this, that, and so I thought, okay, so you're going to throw me under the bus. I know what I've got to leave, you know what I mean, and that was it. So.
After all those years?
Yeah, and so when my wife says, stop being, well, it got to the stage where my kids were even looking at me and they go, why are you still with the band? Yeah, I couldn't, yeah, apart from being loyal, I couldn't come up with one good reason, you know what I mean? And it's only when the wife says, look, be a man, give Ali a call, you know, sit down and have a chat.
Did they try and turn you against Ali, though? Not to call, not to do anything?
Who?
The other band members?
Oh, they were so paranoid. They thought that I had been secretly liaising with him, you know, for months.
But even if you were, then who fucking cares as well? Do you know what I mean?
Well, you know, it just shows you just how, you know, people who you thought were your friends really weren't. There was, you know, they had a ulterior motive.
That's
for everything.
sad though, especially for being with each other for 30 years as well, which
so,
is difficult.
It was a big thing to, you know, to call a lot, you know, draw a line under it. But just after the vitriol that the thrown, it just made it so much easier. And you know, I couldn't be happier than I am right now.
Now, that's a good thing.
I mean,
because there's no UB40, let's face it, without
Yeah.
Ali Campbell.
Well, there's two UB40s at the
There's a
moment.
court case pending with this.
They've kind of haven't got a leg to stand on, you know. What happened was I went out as the legendary voice of UB40, you know, and I was using that moniker for several years and doing very well. Oh, that's another hilarious thing that, you know, they were putting on their socials that, you know, I'd left to pursue a solo career and it had bombed, and, you know, I'd had everything that I released was top 10, you know. And they weren't getting in the charts, you know. So how they could say that I'd bummed, it was beyond me. And it's kind of carried on like that, really, you know. Our last album was number 2, you know, and they haven't charted really for 20 years.
Who is it that's got the lead singer? I don't know, is it your brother? Is it Duncan or Robin?
Duncan, yeah.
So that's you then. How was that feeling for being, were you always close prior to that?
Dunk was like the one that didn't do anything, you know. He'd been on the dole for 8 years when he joined them.
Yeah, the opposite touch to the Midas touch.
Yeah, and the thing is, I used to go to Dunk and unload on him and say, you know, about the management and stuff. And his advice to me was, well, why don't you down tools? Why don't you stop working with them? And then they're going to have to come to, you know, they're going to have to sort things out. And I went, you know what? After a while, it wasn't immediate, but I went, you know what? I'm going to take your advice, Dunk, and I'm going to stop, you know, working with him. And he joined the day after.
So it was all planned, kind of. Maybe he's
Seen
you at the front line for so many years. A little bit of envy there. That's what it sounds like to me. I
Well,
don't know
yeah.
the man, but
I think I seriously think that my brothers were sent mad, and my dad went a bit mad with my success, mine and Robin's success. You know, Dunk was always the black sheep, and he was the one that was up the pub, you know, and hadn't done anything, and you know he was unemployed.
I think you're actually right about that. But sending the
Even
family-
Dave.
That's that
He
was the
started
shocker.
saying that he was going to be the lead
That
singer
was the
and stuff.
shocker. His elder brother David, he's always been a voice of reason for many years, you know what I mean? Yeah. But then, like, when he was doing this interview saying that he could have been the lead singer with
Where did that
he
come
was
from?
in jail.
Yeah, he got 7 years for armed robbery, and the day he come out, I made him the manager of the band, you know, because he was an eloquent bloke, you know, and he managed the band for 2 years, I think, and then he met Lisa Anderson, who was head of Virgin International at the time, and you know they became a couple, and off he went. So
you gave them the start as well, family members. How do you feel, Ali, if all that carry on then?
Duncan, I let him go out to Jamaica and stay at my house with a guy called Bertie Grant, and I spent 150 grand of my money for him to make an album, which didn't get a deal, you know, because it wasn't very good. But I'd done that for him as well, you know, and then for him to have given me advice, you know, I think you should down tools, you know, that'll sort things out.
For him to step in.
And then, next thing I know, he joined the band.
So how can they try to take your name, UB40, away, and they're keeping theirs? So how does it work? Who has got the rights?
Nobody, because it's an unemployment benefit form.
It belongs to the Queen's Station, right?
The
Department
dole,
of Social Security.
So that's what the name UB40 was, for unemployment
benefits.
We were all on the dole.
What was the other bit? Unemployment.
40 is just the registration number.
Registration number. It's some name as well, and it's got a great meaning behind it.
It gave us 3 million card-carrying fans instantly, didn't it? You know,
everybody supporting you on the dole straight away.
When we released the album, we put it in the cover was a dole card, and you could the first batch you could actually post them free of charge. Because
we had to have it franked.
The second the post office had got wise to it, and so we had to put a frank marker on it so you couldn't actually post it. Which I thought was a brilliant move.
It was us that introduced that, you know, if you take your dole card to the gig, you get in, you know, half price and stuff. You know, we did all that.
And people were doing it.
Yeah.
And you've also got a bottle of red wine now, is that correct?
We've got.
Where can people buy that wine?
Online.
eminentlife.com.
Yeah, and it's a lovely bottle of wine as it happens. Yeah.
I don't drink anymore. They've got us to bring me one. But so moving forward for the future, guys, how are you feeling? We've got more albums coming out. We've got more tours.
We've got a brand new album. Obviously, the COVID thing's put the mockers on everything, so we haven't completed it yet. But we've got tours. A tour that was booked before the COVID lockdown, which we've put back till 22. But we're hoping to be playing this summer. There's some festivals around England and stuff. I think we'll be in Europe.
So long as there's no more setbacks, we should be really busy for the rest of the year and 2022.
Yeah, we'll continue where we left off.
There's no they try to worm back in when you start selling out tours again and travelling. The old band members ever try to get back in with you and try and make amends?
became so unpleasant,
Toxic.
you know. And I've kept every post, and you know, Brian Travers, the sax player, started threatening me fans, you know, literally threatening them, saying I'm going to come and have you and all this stuff. Got it all because one day I'm going to put a book together just using their posts, you know. You know, Jimmy Brown, the drummer, put, you know, Ali only likes his black kids, you know. It's just...
The fuck is all that about?
Exactly, you know. But I've kept them all, you know.
What was Nelson Mandela like? You played at his 70th party. Was that in South Africa?
Well, no. What happened was we upheld the cultural boycott until he was released. 94 was he? Mm-hmm. And then when we went for the first time, because obviously we'd sung a lot of songs about South Africa, but we'd never played there because of the cultural boycott. Mm-hmm. So one man, one vote, he got out, and we went and played in Johannesburg to 80,000 people.
How was that?
Fucking amazing. It was a proper lip wobbling moment.
Yeah, you holding back the tears.
Oh man, 80,000 people, and the song at the time was called Sing Our Own Song, and the chorus was Amandla Awetu, which is the ANC chant, Power is Ours. And to have 80,000 people clenching their fists and going, Amandla Awetu, back at us, you know, it was fucking amazing.
Did you ever get to meet him?
No, we didn't get to meet him.
What about Mick Hucknall? Because you kind of had how was your relationship with him? Were you ever friends?
Mick Hucknall, we discovered him.
What? Did you?
Simply Red. We took him on their
because
first.
I know people talk about mention UB40 and Simply Red, because when I says Holding Back the Tears, I think that's one of his songs. That's when it came into my mind.
Yeah, Holding Back the Years, wasn't it?
Holding Back the Years.
Yeah. No, we took them on their first British tour, and then we took them to Europe, and then we took them to America. And when we finished that tour with them supporting us, they released their Money's Too Hard to Mention, wasn't it? Yeah. And then, you know, they took off and went their own way. But we really liked them because they reminded us of us when we'd started, because they was like scruffy mankeys and they were like we were scruffy brummies, you know. And so we discovered them.
That's unbelievable. Another phenomenal talent. It just shows you there. Who's the best? What was it like then? Partying years, there's a lot of drugs, a lot of weed, cocaine then, 80s, 90s.
All the above.
This is correct.
I should have joined a fucking band back in the day then.
You know, you're youngsters and, you know, you've just, you know, left English shores. And now you've just found that what the world's got to offer.
Left to your own devices, you know.
What was it like then? Could you function okay on stage? And were you
Yeah.
We always did the show, you know, because we were serious about that. So we'd never go on stoned or you know.
No, we had a very good lesson, didn't we? We was touring with the Police, and we was touring around south of France. I think it's
Orange.
the Synchronicity tour, and I think there's Ecstasy and Squeeze.
That's it.
The support, and I think Lambrettas. And so I just remember me and him standing at the side of the stage while Squeeze was on. And there's changing over. I just remember piano being brought to the front, all the road crew at the back, you know, shifting everything around. Jules is playing away, and somebody's thrown a can, and it's gone flying through the air. And I'm thinking, oh God, this is going to be horrible.
It's going to hit him right in the face.
And as it happens, he's just looked up, caught the can mid-air, you know. And, a drink for the piano player. I was fucking carried on. I thought, well, you know, we'd all been smoking beforehand, you know what I mean? So, you know,
it was after a sound check, and Miles Copeland had come round going, it's going to rain, you know, so the gig's off. So Stuart Copeland had come in with a bag of weed, so we'd all gigs off, so we're all smoking, and of course we're off our tits. And then we hear Miles Copeland going, Do I see blue skies? So the gig was back on, and we were all off our tits. And they were filming it for Erga Music Walk, which was a massive documentary that went in the cinemas. So when you see the finished thing, you see Sting go, UB40, and he introduces us, and nothing. And then you see me and him going, peeking around, stoned and paranoid. And then we had to go on and do our stuff.
And I just remember us playing, and like the crowd's whistling away, and like I'm looking over him like, And then we find out now they're booing you when they're whistling.
Yeah, they were whistling because they couldn't hear us because we were playing timidly.
Yeah.
Who's
So,
the best you've ever seen play live?
Ooh, Stevie Wonder's pretty fabulous.
Yeah, you type with Stevie Wonder now. So you
I
not
love
one of your
Stevie
albums?
Wonder.
Or do you not do a song with Stevie?
I've done several, and I did the version of Big Brother with Coolio. He was on it as well, wasn't he? And he'd promised to play harp on it for me, and I sent it to him, and he lost it. He's somewhere in his studio. He's looking for his can't find it. So yeah. What else have we done? I've covered a couple of Stevie Wonder songs, which is a pretty difficult thing to do. You know,
It's unbelievable.
yeah, the band go, will you do Very Superstitious? I'm, fuck off, you do it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's actually not a tune, it's a brilliant performance, and that's what Stevie Wonder's good
What
at.
about Tracy Chapman? Did she ever cross your paths? Nah,
don't
she
think
did.
so.
She just released her albums, but never quite.
Fast Car.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember Fast Car, that was a good song. But we've kind of met everybody, and we've worked with everyone in reggae. We did an album called the Father's Album, where after we'd done Labour of Love series and we'd played their stuff, covered our heroes' music, then we got all them to do UB40 songs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Who would you have liked
that's
to
it.
play with through the years?
We've played with most of our heroes.
Most of our heroes. Yeah.
Show off, isn't it?
So,
Yeah, so there's not many things to wish for musically.
What's the goals then for the future? Obviously, when things open back up, what's the plans then?
well, your new album.
When's that getting released?
Wicked.
As soon as we can get in and record it.
Yeah.
And we wrote the tracks, the lyrics, just before lockdown, wasn't it?
We went to Tenerife.
Yeah, spent a week.
And just spent a week sort
Brainstorming.
of, with a big writing lyrics. We came out with about 15 songs, and then went off to play in Puerto Rico, like I said, and Brazil, and then we were all locked down. So literally, since we wrote the lyrics, we haven't had a chance to put it all down. I've demoed some of it, and the music's really quite different. So I'm really excited about it, actually.
What's for going forward then? New album coming out, everything getting released. Is it just 3 years now in the band?
There's 10-piece band.
So you got 10 then?
Yeah, with
How
the
many
biggest,
from
with the
the old
biggest, loudest reggae band in the world.
Nothing's ever changed then.
No, there's just the original singers from UB40. If you go and see the other UB40, there's none of the original singers there, so it's like
Just a made up band.
yeah, it's kind of like a tribute band, And in fact, there are better tribute bands.
Yeah.
I've got to say that. Really, there are
They
better
do-
tribute bands that.
Sing Duncan off the stage.
Yeah.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
Does it make you sad though thinking about it? Just
It's
how
embarrassing.
ended?
It's knuckle-bitingly embarrassing. I've watched them and they're terrible, And I don't like saying it, but they're awful. The music's good because it's all on a loop. What that means is the drummer has got he takes all of the stuff off the album and puts it on a loop. So he goes on a sampler. So they've got keyboards, brass, everything all coming through a sampler. So it sounds good, but then you've got these people you never heard of singing, on top. Whereas you come and see us, you get me and Astro, the original vocalists, with what I would say is the hottest, tightest reggae band in the world on the road at this moment.
The songs that you have sung are timeless. Like any karaoke bar, anytime you're on holiday, you will see or hear UB40 songs. You'll see people singing them.
Yeah.
So it's like the songs will never ever go away. How does that make you feel?
Well, the problem is that the bad band will never go away because
People still want to
because
see
of the
them.
brand. Yeah, they call themselves UB40, but they don't differentiate. They don't say featuring blah 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 blah. Whereas we say UB40 with Ali and Astro, so that people know that the original singers are there. You know.
Yeah. I had Johnny Adair on the show. He gets shot in the head at one of your concerts in Belfast.
Yeah.
How did you know that what happened, or was it till after?
We heard after this, you know, about. I mean, we've had people. There was a woman in America who had a gun with one bullet in it, and she was aiming it at us while we were performing. And it was it was Lloydie, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He's passed away now, Lloydie, but he saw her pointed his gun, and he ran out with another security man, and they got her and took the gun off her, and the bullet was in the chamber, so she was going to have a pop at one of us, you know. You know, that's why it's a bit.
Fucking hell,
it's a
that's
bit
why
dodgy.
you're laying off the weed, man, when you get on stage, so you're on the ball.
Seriously, yeah, but that's America, innit, you know.
Yeah, they're fucking crazy over there.
Well, that's why the Beatles stopped playing, you know. And John was right when he, you know, because they were terrified every time a cracker went off. They were, you know, they were
it's
ducking.
like I can remember one time we played Texas, it was either Houston or Austin, and playing in this bar. You know, I was about, I don't know, 2,000 people. And you had cowboys jumping up, you know, hoopling on the bar. You know, everyone's having a great time. And some girl from the university has come up with this flyer, you know, and it was about the Ku Klux Klan.
They were garroting school children.
There was going to be marching through town the following week. So she says, you couldn't, you know, mention that, you know, anti-rally. I says, yeah, of course I can. So I'm there in front of the stage. Okay, I've just been told that the Ku Klux Klan intend to march through town next week. We're not going to let this happen, are we? Expect nobody to go, no. You could have heard a rap fart. Man, so I just go, yeah, this next one's called 1 in 2. Back of the stage.
Yeah, but to be fair, after the show, because what happened there?
Yeah.
They went, listen, you're passing through.
Yeah,
we've got to live here.
Yeah.
You know? So I mean, it was a multiracial audience, but they just wouldn't say a word.
But that for me was a reality check. That was not everybody likes what you're saying, mate. You know? So yeah, it's always stuck in my mind. Yeah.
So you're off the weed now, Ali? You don't smoke anymore?
No, I've recently stopped.
How are you finding it?
I'm fine. Yeah,
I was on it 12 years, man, and coming off it, I fucking struggled.
Yeah, well,
Really
it was harder.
Nightmares, sweats.
Tobacco I found harder to come off, but I'd done that 6 months before I stopped the weed.
Yeah. How do you find that? Do you think going on stage, but if you're going in with a clear mind,
I never went unstoned.
Nah, so you're always on the ball anyway.
Yeah. I mean, in the 80s, we'd go on sober, but then I'd have 2 bottles of wine and 4 lines of coke. And so by the time the end of the gig was coming, I'd be off. But we always went on sober, you know, because we owe that to paying customers, you know, to be
What is that? So that's not like
straight.
rock and roll, that's like reggae and roll then. I think you've said that in an interview before.
Reggae and roll.
Yeah. It's, lads, what a career, honestly. To be sitting across from you and speaking to you, it's phenomenal, because your music's been played through my household since the day I was born, and still gets played. My mum likes our Grey Goose, and she'll bang on.
Say big love to your mum for us.
Too, man. But for coming on today and telling your stories, I've thoroughly enjoyed that. Astro, it's been a pleasure.
Great to meet you.
Likewise, and man, I can't wait to see what you bring for the future. Would you like to finish up on anything? Anything to promote? Social medias? Anything? Anything in this?
UB40 social media.
Yeah, what's the social?
Just at UB40.
Is that email? Is that a website?
That's UB40.org. It's got all
Yeah.
the live shows on.
Perfect. So UB40.org has got all your live shows, everything coming up, everything fresh. Perfect. Get in tune, guys. I'm going to leave the link in the description, so for people, check it out, get the tickets to UB40. Well, you haven't, it's not as if he's back. He's never been fucking away, man. So
We refuse to go away.
but absolute pleasure, guys. God bless you, and
Respect,
Thank
mate.
you.
thank you.
Check out more of my podcasts on the right, and be sure to like, share, and comment your thoughts on this week's podcast. Thank you.